Welcome to Dare, the show for startup leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs who dare to shape the future. Dare is brought to you by the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network, OEN, and Darwaft, the superpower tech team that can make your vision a reality. The Dare podcast is happy to welcome Olivier Egli to the show today. He works for his own company, which is called Be Like an Apple Tree, and he helps both businesses and employees to understand themselves better and to figure out how they can fit into a larger vision. So, welcome to the show, Olivier.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So, you're based in the Portland area, right?
That's correct. Yeah,
Uh,
Northeast.
yeah, but you're not originally from Portland, right?
Not at all. Not at all.
So, tell me
Switzerland.
about your journey. Yeah.
Well, born and raised in Switzerland, father Swiss, mother French. Traveled the world for most of my life. Studied in Vancouver, BC. My wife is from Los Angeles. Yeah, 5 years ago we moved. 6 years ago we moved to the metropolitan area of Los Angeles from Zurich. And we were there for the longest time and then moved here about a year ago. So yeah, lots of stations.
Yeah. Well, you've seen a lot of different companies, a lot of different people work in different environments. So you have a great perspective, I imagine, on how people can be successful in different environments.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of it. I've seen on both sides of what I call this little line that separates people who kind of have the corporate mentality and people who have this self-made mentality, and kind of help people shift from one to the other. I always consider myself as having had two lives: the life of learning, the life of trials and tribulations, and the life that I have now, the life of the self, where I'm finally free enough and I have liberated myself enough to actually do what I'm meant to do. And I share this
Yeah.
with people. Yeah.
Well, so tell me about what you do. Like if I called you up as someone who needed your assistance, how do you help?
So I specialize in people who are stuck, people who know that there is something else in them that they have to give, but just cannot muster the courage or the clarity to move on. I always call this the people who are in this virtual waiting room of life. So we're kind of comfortable enough to keep things as they are, but also still also uncomfortable enough to just sit and wait. So we're hanging in this weird balance. And I know from experiencing in the last 7 years that this is actually the case for the majority of the working population. The problem is just that we have no one who tells us what to do and what's next, because there is no information on what's next. There is no information on what's behind that big red door that we know we should go through. But because we have been trained traditionally in traditional corporate settings and at school to only rely on reliable data, on data that is, verified, and to have justified decisions that follow with that, we cannot muster the clarity to move forward because there is no data. And that's the reality for the founder's journey. The founder's journey is actually, for me, it's the hero's journey. It's the hero who's brave enough to give in to the fact that something's got to give.
Yeah.
And what I do is I meet people at that very exact moment and I force them to face the uncomfortable questions, but I'm also a sparring partner for them to not leave the room, because we tend to give up too soon when we are in this uncomfortable place of growth. When we're actually ready and willing to face the music, it is too comfortable to just push it out and say, like, well, next year, or maybe after the holidays, or like after the new year. We do these things, we have all these excuses because that's a mentality thing. It has a lot to do with human psychology, and I was a victim to it for the longest time. I worked in high positions in the advertising industry on both clients and agency side, and I was a victim to that. I just kept rising in the ranks, but my happiness kept, going down. Even though I was
Mm.
making more and more money and I was working on bigger and bigger projects, something inside of me was dissatisfied. Something in me was not touched. Something in me was not allowed to step forward. And I always thought that it was going to be better once I have a better job or better projects or, a better time.
The grass is always greener on the other side, right?
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, once I get that
Absolutely.
promotion or once I join that company, things will change. So how do you work with people who are stuck in those moments?
Well, this is really very varied. What I always say is that I operate at the crossroad between Yeah, believe it or not, spirituality, science, and strategic, classic strategic business approaches to kind of bring together the liberation of the self, as I call it, so that people stop being that imposter that doesn't allow you to move forward and you start making different choices. Now,
Mhm.
I push people through different steps depending on where they are. Most of the time, people are stuck at the very base because they have
Mm.
trauma, because they have been preconditioned by their past not to make bold moves, not to
Mhm.
take risks. So I go in there and help them reattach themselves to an old notion of curiosity and playfulness and openness that opens them up to even just see what it is they have in them to give, which is what I call the personal truth. And once you know and understand your personal truth, it becomes much easier to recognize how that truth plays into your skills and your talents and your
Mhm.
experiences. And once you have this full picture, that allows you to recognize that you do have a purpose. There is a purpose in you that you can now take and turn outward, facing outward to the world to create value that humanity actually needs. And
Mhm.
this is how we then build businesses that are not just here to satisfy our desire for money, that are just not just purely transactional, but that actually come from the heart and speak to another heart. And this is a beautiful effect that happens when we actually build businesses that are the expression of our true self. We have empathy. Automatically, our businesses are about compassion. Automatically, our businesses are about transformational value and not transactional value alone. And this is not to say that I encourage the people I work with to work for free or build nonprofits. Not at all. I am all about profit because profit is important to keep these businesses growing so that these businesses can do more, so that we can express ourselves better, so that better value can be built. But most of the time, and I was guilty of that too for over 2 decades, we don't think that deep. We don't go that far. We just look around us in the world and ask ourselves, what is there that I could build that people will pay money for? That is not enough of a question to found your future on. It's not enough to ask that question and answer that question to build a valid business. You have to ask yourself, what is it that you have in you to give? If you were a musician, what is your music? What is your art? And how does this art relate to a need that is present and real? That will show you what the product and the service can be and what kind of people that you need by your side to build such value, to sing this song with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These are two worlds that I kind of bring together. This execution based side that the world knows very well, because business is all about that, we think, but then also this creational internal side, this energetic self that has to come first so that we know what we need to do. It's not enough
Mhm.
just to ask ourselves, what is it that I need to do? We have to ask ourselves, why do I need to do something? What
Mhm.
is it that I have in me? What is the spark to make our business not just essential, but make it absolutely relevant to us and to our people? And to me, this all came from observation of nature, because
Mhm.
I worked in boardrooms, I worked in these high level managerial positions, but we were cut off from nature. Our way we saw growth, the way we interacted, even the way we saw relationships had nothing to do with the way a forest grows, nothing to do with the way a tree grows, nothing to do with the creation of fruit, the creation of vegetables, which is inherently also true to us because we're part of nature. So I ask myself, where did things go wrong? And why do we think that we stand apart from nature in our endeavors? Why wouldn't we want to build businesses that are actual reflections of the way nature works? So that we, who are a reflection of nature, build things who are a reflection of nature. So that
Mhm.
everything becomes a reflection of nature. And that's when I realized it's because we actually got pushed out of that. We got pushed out of that through our education. And now we think this is all there is. We think that money, transactions and growing numbers is all there is. It's a race to the bottom. That's the meaning of life. And I have accompanied a fair amount of very successful people on their deathbed who shared with me how they felt about their life. And I
Mhm.
will tell you in all honesty, it's heartbreaking. You do not want to live in such an illusion. You want to wake up. We need to wake up.
Mhm.
And that is the cage that I'm rattling. That is what I
Yeah.
need to do.
That's very interesting work. So, in the startup world in Portland, there are a lot of people who are starting companies because they want to make a difference and
Mhm.
they want to change things or they want to, take the steering wheel of their own lives. However, I've run into a few founders who have kind of given it their all and then kind of burn out or hit the wall or feel like they've lost motivation. So, how do you work with those people in order to help them rediscover the spark of passion that first got them going on the startup path?
Well, so that is a very good question, and actually one that preoccupies me on the daily. So I used to work a lot with startups in the context of accelerator and incubator programs. And the
Yeah.
fact is, I'm very sorry to say that most people don't know what their passion is. Most people get on this journey with these lofty ideas of purpose and meaning and whatnot, and it's all bullshit. I'm sorry for the expression, but we think we have to be these great people and these we have to create change and make an impact. It means nothing. Most of the time, those are just empty words, buzzwords to kind of, signal that you sense there's something, but most of the time you're still only attached to the old thinking and to the product. And you're just kind of trying to wrap the product in something that would justify you being here. And it also makes things sound good. When you say that you're a social entrepreneur, sometimes it's a gateway. It's like a business card into certain conversations. But I'm the
Mhm.
first guy who goes and I'm asking these questions that most of the time these founders don't survive. Their business plan does not survive my initial round of question usually, because when I really ask them about the essence and the attachment of their idea to the self, there's always a breaking point. There's almost always a point where they're not honest in their approach. They're not honest, and that's why they don't care enough, because we all know that life is not easy. Life is not supposed to be easy. Life is not supposed to be free of pain. Life is effort. Growth is pain. It's breaking your bones and your skins millions of times per minute.
Yeah.
That's what growth is. But to have this lofty idea that I'm going to change the world, turn it into a better place, you're already done. You already have no chance. You stand no chance in building a business if that's what you want, because it makes your business depending on an outcome. And I always tell my startups, my founders that I work with is and having an outcome is a luxury. What really matters is having an intention. And the intention, that's what you bring to the table. What is the song again that you need to sing? Because what people do with it is outside of your control. You might die and the world is still the same place. That should not make you a miserable person, because
Mhm.
you did what you could. And this is really all we can hope to do. So I'm really careful, when people burn out early on, most of the time it's either their own fault or they moved too quickly from a place of idealism towards big money, you know? And big money always comes with the weight of transaction, because there it's the reality of like, how will you scale? What's the demand? How many orders do you have in your pipeline already? And if you don't have a very good, solid personal pitch that either makes it so that you don't need that big money immediately because you realize we're going to scale slowly and we're going to use our own stamina, or we're going to source from people who care equally, then you have to admit that you're in this for transactional reasons. And then you have to take the big money. But then you can also not complain. So it is really like, if you don't start from a place of honesty, it's going to bite you in the ass no matter what. You have to be honest. And just yesterday, I talked to three super sweet guys from Seattle who are in the process of starting their own outdoor communication company focusing
Yeah.
on outdoor apparel.
Mhm.
And I asked them, so what is your strategy? What are you out to do? What are you going to do now? And they said like, well, right now we're kind of like open to do anything because we want to like get it off the ground. And I said like, never forget, the first minute in your work life as a business is the one that will stuck with you forever. It will stick with you forever. It is that which people will remember. It's that which will by which you will be measured. So if you now say that you're going to be the jack of all trades and you're going to serve any client with any project in any industry, you will, after that, you will have to work hard to detach yourself from that notion. And that is energy you don't want to waste. It is much better to scale very slowly, to be extremely niche and dedicated, work a side job, and carve out 1 or 2 hours a day to work slowly at increasing the temperature and the pressure on your project, then go all in, but becoming this voice that agrees with everyone.
Mhm.
And that is just something that we don't really teach. We don't really teach the value of geology in business, which is time and pressure. Time and pressure creates diamonds, it creates coal and entire mountain ranges. This is what we want. We want to be like mountains. We want our work to be greater than ourselves. But we need time, which means we need patience. And we
Yeah.
need pressure, which means we need intention and focus. But you know how it is nowadays. We kind of try to bypass all that. We want to kind of like take the shortcuts
Yeah,
and
we want the cheat codes in life, the ability to skip over the hard parts.
exactly. But you look at an apple tree, it gives apples once a year, not twice, not 3 times. You
Uh-huh.
can change its nature, but then it's not really an apple tree anymore. And eventually, the altered mutation of nature will come and hunt you down. We have to understand we are also subject to these cycles. We have to go with the rhythm. We have to go with the flow. This is the first thing that I teach my people is you are right on time. You're not too late. You're not too early. You show up every day and you give all you have, even if it's not much, but you still
Yeah.
give 100%.
Well, you just used the phrase that you teach people. And I know some people who do the kind of work that you do have been called coaches. Other people are consider themselves executive advisors. How do you characterize your work and yourself?
I call myself three things facilitator, because a facilitator makes things easier. So he lowers the amount of energy and pressure it takes for you to overcome an obstacle. I think that is very fitting for my work. The other one is an educator. So much more than a teacher, I'm an educator because educere from Latin means to lead out of something. So I lead people out of their doubt. I lead people out of their obscurity and their darkness. I find that very fitting. And then lastly, in a more, shall I say, traditional sense, I'm a guide. I'm not a coach. I don't
Yeah.
want to be a wingman to a person that needs me constantly. I just want to be a guide for this special moment in life where you need somebody to hold up the mirror and reflect back at you that you're worthy of it, that you have it in you, and that you deserve all of this. You deserve to have it all. But because we forgot that, we need a wingman for a short period of time, which is a guide who shows us there's a door and there's something behind it. And you deserve to go through that door, and I will be with you until you pass that door. It's
Mhm.
precisely how I see myself. I know it would be, people like to call me a coach. I personally don't like it. I don't think that I'm part of that kind of world. I'm much more with the human aspect of it, with the psychological aspect of things, so that people can then express themselves freely.
Right.
This,
Do you help people by helping them to reframe a situation, understand it differently, understand how they can be more effective or understand their own potential? Is that
yeah,
some work that you do?
yeah, I mean, it entails that naturally. What I really do is I reframe people's understanding of themselves and life on a mental level, because right now, most of us understand ourselves and work and life on a scarcity level. So we work to rectify things. And what I do is I reconnect people with the idea of abundance. Mental abundance is you're worthy of it. You're perfect. You have it all in you. You just need to chisel away. And that is framework that I create, because within that framework, everything is possible. You give yourself permission to tap into your resources and your potential. You now become the owner of your life. You become the actual, captain of your boat, of your ship, rather than being pushed around by the powers that be, by fashion, by trends, by the world, by social media, and all these, which I think we really need to have this self clarity.
Yeah, that's a great perspective to have. Yeah. Well, so you've been working here in Portland for a while now. What do you think of the kind of startup scene here and the entrepreneurial culture that you've encountered?
So I have not been here for a very long time. I actually just moved here a little over a year ago. I have met with a lot of people. I spend a lot of time in very interesting settings, still a lot around marketeers, around communication experts and advertising agencies and the like. We started two think tank. We're starting a new group now that's called Mindful Entrepreneurs PDX. I see that there is enormous potential that is untapped. I see that is a little bit of a clash in culture here. Let me maybe just very briefly explain what I mean. Portland has this very interesting side where a lot of things are very DIY. A lot of things are kind of like handmade, self-made,
Yeah.
bootstrap, which is great in terms of like bringing, like, taking off, bringing
Yeah.
things from ideation into a reality. But then I feel like oftentimes it kind of crashes and burns, or it kind of stops there, or it remains DIY. It remains kind of like bootstrappy, or a little too small, or like the MVP turns into the actual product or the actual thing, and then we're kind of content with that. So this is something that I just kind of like noticed is very prevalent here throughout different industries and different areas, and something that I definitely want to address, because this mentality of it's good enough or we are okay as it is what also what holds people back, of course, from growing as themselves and impacting more people, and having their idea actually touch people at the level at which it could, right? So this is definitely something that I noticed more here than anywhere else where I lived before. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a personal thing, but I see it in different scenes here. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. And so, where are you going next with your work? You did this a think tank, you founded different groups. I think the group you mentioned was what, PDX Entrepreneurial. Sorry.
Mindful Entrepreneurs PDX. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's next for your work here?
So there's a big word that's attached to my work. It's called
Yeah.
intupreneurs. So I am actually in the process with my work. I create intupreneurs, which means I create people, business people who put their intuition first. Because traditionally we put our intellectuality, our rationale and logic first. But I believe that when we really speak from our heart, we become intupreneurs. So what I really do now, more focused, is I'm starting these local groups, these entrepreneurship groups. So one here in Portland that I just started 2 weeks ago, and we had 17 people, just attend casually. I have a group in Vienna, Austria. I have a group
Mhm.
in Zurich, and we're going to start a group in Paris, believe it or not, that I'm going to go visit in April, with people who kind of like, choose that approach, with also with former clients of mine.
Yeah.
I have been working on a book for 5 years that is supposed to be done at some point this year, and hopefully also out this year. And then lastly, a educational center, kind of like a place, a physical place where everything will be about teaching future entrepreneurs how to build businesses that really reflect who they truly are.
Fantastic. Well, if I could ask one wrap up question here, what do you dare to dream?
What do I dare to dream? You know what? So maybe that question would have been more interesting if you asked me that 10 years ago when I was
Ah,
still on the other side, because I dreamt of a lot of things. Now I realize that there's really just one dream that is worth keeping close to your chest. And maybe that's going to sound esoteric, and I hope it does not. I will still say it. I just dream of peace. I dream to be at peace. I dream of the fact that I will forever be able to find peace in my work and express peace in my work. And as long as that's guaranteed, I know I'm on the right path, I'm doing the right thing. And everything else that, the smaller dreams, like what I just said, my book to be out, those groups to form and to spread, this center, to be created, all of these small things will come from that. All these things will show themselves, will manifest themselves as a consequence of that. So yeah, this is kind of like, I had to learn to redream after I shifted out of the corporate world. I
yeah.
had to like reinvestigate and revalidate my dreams, and they were much less material, much less outward bound than they are, like, now they are really very internal. And peace is, that's the big one. I think that's the biggest dream we can have, because when we have peace, we have everything we need.
That's fantastic. What a great dream to share. Thank you so much, Olivier.
Thank you.
Thanks to our guests today for their insights into the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We wish you all the best in your startup journey. The Dare Show is brought to you by the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network and by Darwaf, the superpower tech team that can make your vision a reality. Visit us at oen.org or at darwaf.io. Thanks again for listening. Till next time.